I've got with me Otto Wicks-Green. He's the guitarist from Sleep Makes Waves. That's one word. Thanks for joining me.
No worries, Dwayne. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So how would you describe the music of Sleep Makes Waves?
We play what a lot of people call post rock, and I get a little bit self-conscious using the term because it when people aren't familiar with it, they're like, "Oh, post rock, who's this wanker?" But essentially, it's instrumental music using a similar sort of instrumentation as traditional rock. So we've got guitars and bass and drums, but we don't have a vocalist per se, and we don't have verses or choruses or any of those traditional song structures. It's more about building crescendos and making a sort of emotional impact through music alone.
Being associated with the Birds Robe Collective, which
Yeah.
is a group of experimental rock musicians which started in the Sydney area, but it's expanding all over the
Yeah,
country.
yeah,
You're sometimes lumped into the prog genre, and,
yeah.
and sometimes that can mean that a band's fan base consists of hippies from the '70s who don't want to let go of the past. Is that the case with your fans?
Well, originally when the band formed, there was a lot of metalheads who really got into it, and we were sort of, billers didn't and promoters didn't know what sort of shows to put us on, so we got a lot of metal gigs, and metalheads really liked us because they were like, "Oh man, these guys are so chill." Was the word that they'd use. This is so relaxing, even though to people who might listen to indie pitchfork centered sort of rock, we're actually quite heavy. And then of course, yeah, we got onto the Bird's Robe, and we got a lot of sort of attention from the prog fans, which is fine because prog fans are usually, it's a compliment. These guys like really, really intelligent music, and we're nowhere near that standard. We think, we're just these guys who sit together and talk and play music about our feelings and stuff. So if we're attracting that kind of attention, then it's flattering, and all the more power to them for liking us. It's really cool. Hopefully, we'll get a bit of attention from people who aren't only interested in prog and from people who are interested in a whole range of stuff. Like the dream is to sort of bridge that gap between people who love music with vocalists, whatever it may be, and who can appreciate us as well. Hopefully, the songs are interesting enough that people can get on board with them from all walks of music.
But believe it or not, the prog fans are getting younger, I've noticed.
Yeah, it's always a promising thing. I mean, having been like, I'm not as into it as I used to be because my guitar playing deteriorated along with my interest in prog at the same time when I got interested in more chilled out instrumental stuff along the post rock vein. And I used to be like big into like Pain of Salvation and Dream Theater and prog metal bands like Disillusion or Opeth. These guys were my bread and butter a few years ago, and I think I probably bring those influences in, or at least I try to. But now I've gotten more into delay pedals and sunsets.
The band seems to have been around a few years, but from what I've read, it got off to a pretty shaky start. What can you tell us about that? You're not an original member of the band, are you?
Yeah, yeah. So the band was going from around late 2006, and the four guys created a bit of buzz along the way after they released their first EP, In Today Already Walks Tomorrow, in 2008. So I was a big fan of this band from Melbourne called Nea Obliviscaris, and I was posting on their internet forum, which is where I met Tom Binneter, who's also a big fan of those guys. And we got talking, and he told me that he had this band called Sleep Makes Waves. And at the time, I was just getting interested in post-rock bands like Explosions in the Sky and This Will Destroy You from Texas. And when I heard that there was this really great band doing these similar things in Sydney, I was really excited, and I went along to like every show for the next year or so, maybe even two, however long it was. And Tom bowed out due to some sort of personal stuff. It was a really amicable departure, and he very nicely recommended me for the spot that was open. I'd uploaded a acoustic cover of one of their tracks to YouTube, so they knew I could play guitar, and so I joined at the beginning of 2010, which is a while ago now, but so it was a little shaky in the middle there because Alex, the bass player, had moved to Canberra to do some work, to do uni work at ANU, and the band sort of hit this. Oh God, what's happening? Is this going to keep going? But I had a lot of energy about the music when I came into the band, and I was like, guys, we've got a great thing going on here, bigger and better things, etc. Let's keep pushing on. And we played a few shows in 2010. where I sort of got my bearings, and then we immediately started writing new material for the new record.
So what's the story with this money and equipment that got stolen just
Oh
before you went
yeah,
into the
money and the
studio?
equipment. Oh yeah, so yeah, these bad things just kept happening. The first thing was that we'd been over the course of 2010, we played a lot of shows around the country, around the East Coast at least. Just to sort of introduce me to the audiences and to showcase some of the new material. And we got a bit of money out of them, not huge amounts, obviously, but enough to set aside for recording. And we didn't have a bank account yet, and so all the money was sort of kept in a drawer, basically, at Kid's house. And somehow, it was just a lot of bad luck, I think. These thieves broke in during the day when Kid was at work. They found the drawer, and they stole, like, well, close to $2,000 out of the house. And this was basically all the money that we had saved as a band for recording. And it was just a massive setback for us because, sort of emotionally and practically, having done all that work. I mean, you don't do it for the money, obviously. We do it because we love playing music, but it sure helps. And then we were like, we've got no choice. We've got to keep going, play more shows, earn more money, etc. And then the next thing happened was that Kid got these two beautiful guitars custom made for him by a company called 2012 Guitars in Melbourne. And I don't know if it was the same guys, but another set of thieves broke in, this time into his carport under his apartment building, and stole the guitars. And Kid especially was understandably pretty cut up about it. Luckily, the police ended up finding the guitars. These dudes tried to sell them at a pawn shop, and they were recovered. So, there were setbacks, but there was never going to stop us. We were always going to keep doing it because we had all this material and we were feeling pretty good about it. So in the end, these were just sort of like roadblocks, which we went on through and ended up recording the album in early 2011.
So you guys found a secluded spot?
Yeah, we
and
did.
You made your own studio for recording the album, which was called "And So We Destroyed Everything."
Yes.
Did you go and do that because you had the shortage of money?
No. The studio thing was actually just a practical consideration because we needed a place that we had these ideas from the very beginning about how we wanted to record, and our producer Dax, who actually did the EP back in 2008. A good friend of ours and big fan of the band. And, we had this forum, this sort of thread thing going on with him where we were discussing everything. And we came to the conclusion that we wanted a single session. We didn't want to have to come in every day, finish at 10 p.m., start again at 9 a.m. the next day. We wanted to actually just get away from it all and spend a week or so just doing our thing. And it was very difficult to find a place like that in a city that we could use because of noise complaints and all that kind of stuff. And we also just wanted to get away from everything and actually have our own space. So it was a bit of a search, but Dax had this contact in the construction industry, actually, who had built this little log cabin as a gatehouse for his house, which was another couple of Ks down this dirt track. And it was perfect. And Dax actually got onto him when he was building this place and said, would you mind making a couple of modifications so that I can use it as a studio? And this guy, Graham, was a great guy and really, really helped us along the way with, even just morale boosters like some ice cold beers when it was very hot and our air conditioner broke. So we
you've got to have those.
Oh man, we were very grateful for Graham. But he put in things like a sort of glass window within one of the walls so that we could isolate that room and use it as a drum room, and Dax could look in and sort of, while Will was tracking drums, stuff like that. A couple of structural changes which helped. And aside from that, we just brought a lot of baffles and other sort of sound equipment in on Dax's ute. The whole thing wasn't hugely expensive, but I think we would have gone there no matter how much money we had. It was a really, really awesome recording experience, aside from the air conditioner breaking and it being about 40 degrees every day, which was pretty unpleasant.
So it was just over this last summer gone, was it?
Yeah, it was. So it was February last year.
Which national park were you in?
We were in Wingello National Park.
Where's that?
It's about an hour west of Canberra from memory. Yep. So yeah, right out in the bush.
Gets very hot out there in summer.
Yeah, it was intense, man. We brought all these fans in and we had all these fans constantly going and we were just sitting there And I remember at one stage after sleeping, I slept outside one of the nights on a leather couch, which is such a mistake because like leather just makes it sticky and I just remember being attacked incessantly by mosquitoes and waking up the next morning feeling pretty bad and having to record some guitar parts. And I think it was for track three, one of the really chill out tracks, and I was just like not in the zone at all. I was itchy, I was hot, and Alex was like, "Oh, dude, chill out for a bit, have a glass of water." Uh, it was punishing the weather, but that's Australia, and that's what sort of we wanted to celebrate with the album cover as well. Our art guy James Stewart was looking for some direction on what to do, and we said, "Well, we're an Australian band, and we recorded this album in the middle of the hottest summer we've ever felt, and so we want this front album cover to have this feel of Australian heat on it."
Is that an image from Wingello?
No, it's just near there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just near Canberra, which was where he shot the picture. Yeah, yeah. We were really stoked with it. It's cool to be an Australian post rock band. It's a bit weird, and a lot of them come from Europe and from America. So we wanted to say, yeah, we've got cool landscapes as well.
Of course. And your buggers, I was in Canberra last week. I think you're playing there. Is it this Friday or next Friday?
Yeah, yeah. We're playing there real soon. Let me just get up these precise dates. So Canberra is the Friday the 30th, and Wollongong is September the 24th. But yeah, it's real soon, and with a couple of awesome bands as well. Meniscus, our friends in Sydney, who were another band that really inspired me to get into this instrumental stuff. And Pirate, awesome sort of. I don't even know how to describe them. A sort of chaotic jazz fusion metal sort of thing, which amazingly talented musicians. And our friends Looking Glass as well, who I haven't heard much from, but I'm sure are excellent.
Even though it's some of the stuff is non-commercial, you're getting airplay.
Yeah, well, we've been really pleasantly surprised by the response that stations like Triple J have been giving us. All especially people like Fenella Kernebone on the Sound Lab on Sundays, and Scott Fitzsimons on Dead Air Space on FBI in Sydney. These guys are really into the alternative, not so commercial stuff. They played tracks on our album that are like close to 10 minutes long. It's so lovely that they're going out of their way to do this stuff, and it's really encouraging that we're getting the support from these radio stations, including you, Dwayne. We're getting our name out there because you don't go into this kind of music expecting to be famous. But getting a little bit of recognition for the work is definitely really encouraging.
How do you go about constructing an attention-grabbing instrumental rock album? Do you think about that, or do you just put down whatever ideas feel right at the time? Is it instinct?
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit of both. We're going into this album. The post-rock scene has become increasingly popular and increasingly crowded over the past few years, with a lot of bands doing instrumental stuff. And once upon a time, maybe 10 years ago, it was really interesting and exciting for a band like Explosions in the Sky or Mogwai to come along and do instrumental stuff and do it well. But it felt like that's not really enough anymore, because so many people have heard that you have to keep trying to find new ways of making it interesting. And I suppose that's sort of making it a bit more of an intellectual pursuit than it is, because in the end we sit down and we write music. But on top of that, we're looking for ways to make it a little bit off-center, to make it a little bit weird. And so for this album, examples include our friend from Alabama, Matt Finney, who's this incredibly dark and deep sort of spoken word artist. And he actually got in contact with us a while ago about the possibility of collaborating. And for this album, we were like, yeah, that's a really cool thing that we could put on. And we wanted to put interesting instrumentation on, so strings and trumpets and stuff like that. But in the end, it comes down to just listening to a lot of stuff. Like we got into a whole heap of stuff going into the writing of the material. Alex was into his vintage synth sounds from LCD Sound System and stuff like that, and I was really into the really sort of gentle chord structures of guys like Mark Kozelek from Sun Kill Moon, and kids really into really heavy hardcore music. So we had all this stuff, and Will loves his J-pop. So all this stuff sort of I like to imagine just like putting into a blender and then filtered through this our post-rock sensibilities. Alex writes a lot of this stuff by himself and sends it to us for ideas, and Kid and I will sort of play over the top and give him some suggestions here and there. Or a lot of the songs were also written by just me, Alex, and Kid sitting down, and Will contributes all his drum parts and also has a good ear for what sounds right. So it's definitely collaborative, and it's usually not an intellectual thing. But for releases coming up, we have a few ideas of concepts and things like that we'd like to aim for, and it's I suppose the other element is just never getting into a comfort zone, as a cliche as that sounds. Where we don't want to just write the same album again. We always want to add something new, something that'll keep us developing as musicians, I suppose.
Do you think with such a glut in the instrumental market,
Yeah.
which I wasn't aware that there was such a glut, although even the Birds Robe Collective roster is looking pretty full
Yeah.
these days. Do you think there's a sustainable market for instrumental experimental rock? Do you think you'll be able to live on it?
Oh, it's scary. It's a scary thought. We try not to think about it, we all have day jobs, and it's not something that we had massively high hopes to get very successful off. I think it's very difficult to break into a point where you can actually do it for a living. There are a few cases of bands who have done it who are absolutely excellent. Like Russian Circles were out here recently, Mono are coming soon, and Explosions are coming in December. These are guys who started ahead of the curve and cemented a really, really structured and interesting sound for themselves that captivated people. We're a bit late to the party, I think, for that kind of following and that kind of attention-grabbing sort of impact that these guys had when they arrived. Who knows, Dwayne? We might get lucky, and the buzz might catch on, and we might get, maybe we'll start doing some more pitchfork-friendly music. But we love big guitars too much, I think, is our problem. We love Isis, we love Russian Circles, we love Cult of Luna. We love these really heavy bands who turn their guitars real low and hit really loud, distorted chords. And that's never going to be that cool, unfortunately. So we're okay with that. We've accepted it. We have this expression in the band. The singer of Isis is called Aaron Turner, and I sometimes go through these crises of conscience where I think, oh man, maybe we should just put more synth in and be a little bit more people friendly. And Alex just says, what would Aaron Turner do, bro? And the answer is always the same, which is shave your head, buy some load plugs, and stay heavy.
You mentioned there that you might have come along too late to be one of the attention-grabbing bands in that genre, but I guess Pirate, who I'm also featuring this evening, their opening track, I don't know if you're familiar with their latest album, but their opening track just basically punches you between the eyes as soon as you hit the play button, and it's like an oral assault instantly. It's a brilliant first track to grab your attention and keep you the whole way through the album. With you guys, I put your first track on, and it starts off a lot more discreetly, shall I say, but it builds up, and it still does have that impact once it winds up.
Oh, thanks.
So I think you did a great job on the opening track on that album. I think opening tracks are really, really important.
Yeah, for sure.
You did a great job, and with a name like that track. To you, they are birds. To me, they are voices in the forest. Absolutely fantastic. That in itself has me intrigued.
Oh, well, that's really good to hear. And, I'm sure that you're a very discerning listener of music, and it's really appreciated. But I suppose on a more international level, we've got this core fan base of people that really like what we do. And it's growing. It is growing. And that's really encouraging to see. But I suppose, bands like Explosions came in and they had this immediate sort of gasp reverberated around the world, and people are like, whoa, this is really pretty, this is totally new. I haven't heard anything like this. That sort of that newness to it. I definitely think that we can still make music that affects people, and that people are impressed or moved by is definitely the goal. But the question is how many people, I suppose, will want to hear it and will get exposed to it.
You also mentioned too that all of you in the band are interested in the concept of the album.
Yeah.
And concept albums are usually associated with lyrics.
Oh,
How
with
do you
lyrics?
make it?
Yes, right. Yeah, well, it's actually something that we're going to start moving into, Dwayne. We discussed it as a band, and I can sing, not great, but I can. And there was a couple of vocals that snuck in on the end of this latest album, and then the last track, just a sort of melody that we all sang together in the studio after a couple of glasses of wine on the last night, which also followed a blackout, which was another story, kind of scary. Luckily, the power came back and we could put the vocals in. But yeah, we're actually going to be moving into doing some vocal stuff in some future releases for sure. We're not, we've never written lyrics before, so it's a little worrying because as soon as you talk about vocals, you have to start talking about lyrics, and that's a whole other kettle of fish for us. It'll be like starting again. In terms of learning an art form of songwriting as such. But yeah, we're actually going to be hoping to put some of that stuff in, and hopefully people will like it. We'll see.
Actually, that leads perfectly into my next question,
Yes.
which is, why aren't you guys doing movie soundtracks? I can see you guys doing it.
Right.
Absolutely. Your sounds are so atmospheric, and I could actually see images going past my eyes when I was listening to the music.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. If they're good images, then write them down and send them to us, and we'll make a music video out of them. But to answer your question, I suppose we've had a little bit of it's called syncing in the industry, and you need someone. The person who generally lines these things up for you is called a publicist, and we don't have a full-time publicist yet because we didn't. I don't know why. I suppose we didn't find the right person, and we haven't been looking hard enough. But it's definitely something that we want to move into because with this kind of music, and actually going back to my previous example of Explosions in the Sky, one of the big things that put them on the map was doing exactly that movie soundtrack stuff for a film called Friday Night Lights back in 2004, I think. And it's something that we'd love to do for sure moving ahead to next year. And hopefully we're in discussion with a few different agencies at the moment. And hopefully these guys have a little bit more sort of networking and a little bit more know-how. And that's not to say that Mike, our manager, hasn't been amazing, and we'll continue working with him for sure. But in that sort of publicist role, hopefully these new people can find us some spots. There has been some sort of things along those lines, like some of our music was featured on a documentary made by the BBC, and there was something for a Brisbane Arts Festival recently, and the Parkour Association of Australia actually commissioned us to write a song specifically for them, which we released early 2010 or mid 2010. So we've sort of ventured a little way out into these waters, and we definitely want to go a little bit further because I think it's a really good use for our sort of music.
So you made the announcement a few weeks ago that you're losing your drummer.
Yes,
but the band is going to continue. I'm really concerned about that actually, because to me the drums on this album were an absolutely powerful instrument, and they were what's the word? Quintessential, I guess, to the album.
They
how are you gonna fill those big shoes?
It was a real sort of real blow for us losing Will, because he's a great guy and he's one of the founding members of the band, and as a fan of the band for the years before I joined, the drumming of those first two releases was really not really, but like a big part of what made me interested in it. Will's very interesting jazz style. He's a jazz drummer originally, and he got into bands like Mono and the instrumental stuff. And it was a perfect match because it gave that interesting sort of sound. His amazing rolls in his hands, Well, we've actually started auditioning some new drummers already. We had our first audition a few nights ago with a couple of dudes from the local area, and I can say like confidently, no matter who we pick, that these guys are going to be as awesome as Will. They will be, and it's just a question of what slightly different things they can bring to the band. Will was awesome in a very unique and really irreplaceable way, but these kind of things happen and you got to roll with them. When bands start to get a little bit of momentum like we have, people have to make that really difficult choice of what they have to prioritize in their life. And Will is a man of great integrity, and his decision was very difficult, and he told us as early as he could, and we completely understand his decision, and we wish him all the best for his future endeavors. And likewise, he does for us. But he just felt that it would be holding the band back a little bit to try and balance all the things going on in his life. But to replace him, a big thing for us is to find a drummer who has their own sparkle, similar to what Will brought to the band. That certain je ne sais quoi of a very strong voice behind the kit. And that's what we're going to be looking for. And the guys that we've auditioned so far are really, really promising. And I think it's going to be different, but it's going to be just as good in the years ahead.
But Will is continuing on with the album launch tour, isn't he? Until the
Yeah,
end.
that's right. He's been really great with the whole process, and his last show will be with the band that got him interested in this type of music, which is Mono from Japan, at Manning Bar on October the 8th, which is a kind of poetic finish to his career with Sleep Makes Waves. So we have, I think that's 4 more shows with Will in Wollongong, Canberra, Marrickville with Unitopia, and then with Mono. And then after that, if we get a chance to play some more shows towards the end of the year, which we are hopeful for, it'll be with our new guy or girl.
Very good. You mentioned Unitopia. How did you get that supporting gig? Do you realize how big that is on an international scale in
Um,
terms of prog?
well, I'm not totally clued into the prog scene, so maybe I don't appreciate it as much as I should do.
There is actually a magazine that Classic Rock has produced called Classic Rock Presents Prog. It's an
Yeah.
offshoot of Classic Rock magazine, and
Okay.
they did a readers poll last year of the best prog bands.
Yeah.
Unitopia was in there in the top 5 in some of them.
Oh, wow. Man,
So
that's really fascinating.
I can't remember which categories, whether it was guitarist or bass player or whatever, or singer,
Yeah.
but they were up there.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. It's I have to again credit our amazing manager and at the moment booking agent Mike Solo for queuing all this stuff up for us.
Yeah.
His work through the Birds Robe Collective has been really, really valuable for us over this past year, and this is just another example of the kind of shows that he can line up for us. He has, it feels like he has a million arms with a million hands, constantly doing things, bringing in bands, talking to them, talking to others, negotiating things, and this was one of the opportunities that landed on his lap, and he's always been a massive supporter of us, and any sort of opportunity that he thinks we can contribute to, he's always keen to help out. So we're absolutely psyched for the show, though. Obviously Unitopia are a massively well-respected band in this scene, and I just hope that people can dig something that's probably slightly less impressive on a musicianship sort of level, a little bit simpler, but hopefully comparably powerful.
It certainly is powerful. I can vouch for that. Well, I wish you all the best, Otto, with your current album launch tour and with your tour with Unitopia. That's amazing. It's incredible
Thanks
stuff.
a lot, Dwayne.
If it gets you some more serious prog and overseas exposure and exposure within Australia, I think that's fantastic. So thanks
Yeah,
for
well,
joining me.
that's the dream. Thanks a lot for having me, Dwayne. It was nice to talk to you.